So hello and welcome. I'm Frederick Dunn, and today we're going to talk about honeybees in your backyard. Often when storms come through, and let's face it, a lot of storms have come through this year, and this is September 1st. You may walk out in your apiary after the rain stops and the clouds clear and find that the bees are flying at an intense rate, that the activity is really up, and it can sound like they're swarming. So what's the difference? How do we know? Well, first of all, let's slow things down a little bit. Look at this. Honeybees, I don't know if you're aware, can resolve up to 200 frames per second. So in other words, they perceive speed and movement very quickly. What about humans? We're good for about 20. That's right. So maybe the bees are able to dodge things, move quickly throughout their hives and flying through their forage areas much better than we are. And this can make their movements difficult to detect and observe, especially at the landing board. So by slowing it down, let's see what's going on. Well, we've got pollen coming in, we've got workers, we've got males, the big, heavy-bodied, big-eyed drones that you're going to see a lot of in these sequences here. And I say that's a good thing too. What are the bees doing? There's a drone right there coming in on the right. Probably been out there at the local drone congregation area. What do they do there? They look for queens, virgin queens. And I think that's good this time of year too, because guess what? We cannot afford to lose our queens late in the year. They've really run out of their opportunity to replace a queen. So how would we know? Well, looking at the landing board, we can see that these bees are coming and going, and the behavior is pretty normal. A lot of the bees are facing the hive, zigzagging back and forth. There could be some orientation flights going on here. There could be some new bees that are coming out. And that means after they've finished their in-hive duties, in other words, they're already probably a week or two old by the time they get outside of the hive, and they zigzag back and forth looking at it. And this is a concentrated behavior after a rainstorm, especially after a couple of days of inclement weather, because that's their first chance to get out. The other thing is, it's the afternoon, it's warm outside, and they have to take advantage of all the nectar they can get, all the pollen they can get, because they're making preps for winter. Now we're back at full speed. Yeah, this troubles people. If you're brand new to beekeeping, this activity can sound like a swarm. Particularly if you have several beehives, and we do, then you can go out there. My grandchildren come and tell me that they think the hives are swarming. And so we can look at this landing board and know another big concern this time of year is that they might be getting robbed. This colony is not being robbed. We don't see bits and pieces being dropped out. We don't see bees leaving this hive and wiggling their abdomens to align their resources before they fly off. We don't see fighting. We don't see dead bees in the grass in front of the hive. This behavior is normal. It's a fever pitch. This is a strong colony. What kind of hive is that? It's a long Langstroth horizontal hive. It's full of bees. So in this video, what I'm going to do is answer the question, are these bees preparing to swarm? In other words, are they pushing out the old queen and are they about to replace her with new queens? I don't want them to do that this time of year. But I am glad to see lots of drones coming out, because I do have some hives that have new queens that require mating very soon. But we'll focus on this hive. The only way to conclusively know if you're in good shape regarding queen or queenless is to do a rapid inspection. Now, an evaluation of a beehive is going through frame by frame, looking at all the resources, seeing how they're situated. This is a bad time of year to do that, and I'll explain why. It's because even though we're in a nectar flow, there's a potential for robbing going on. You don't want to expose your hive to that. You also don't want to disrupt their activity too much at a time when getting resources for winter is critical. Look at the pollen coming in on their hind legs. Can you count more than 10 per minute? Yeah, on this colony we're up to 20 or 30 per minute coming in. So that tells me, looking at the landing board, looking at the entrance, that they've got solid brood in there, and that they're still developing. And then you see all these drones and you think, whoa, does that mean there's a laying worker and that all they're doing is producing drones? No. This time of year, a colony could have up to 20% drones. So in other words, if you had a 10 frame deep brood box, 2 of those 10 frames could be primarily drone comb, larger than worker comb, producing lots of drones. And as I mentioned before, I'm glad to see them. I want to put my genetics out there in the local environment. I also want the queens that have emerged in my other hives, specifically my observation hives. I have 2 of those that I'm waiting to see the queens begin laying again. They recently replaced their queens, but this hive, I believe, is queen right. And when you hear that term queen right, it means that there's a laying queen, that you should find eggs and open larvae, but the only way to know it for sure is to take a look. So in this video, we're going to open the hive and do just that. But before, we need to take a close-up look again because I want you to see the differences in these bees. There's pollen on the hind legs of that one that just flew in. This is chaos at the entrance. The entrance is sized right, by the way. It's another thing I want to warn people about, especially the new backyard beekeepers. You don't want large entrances this time of year. You don't want the smell of honey to come out through the sides and the back and top entrances and vents and things like that, because we'll be drawing in strong colonies that are prepared to rob out your honeybees. You think that wasps and yellow jackets and things like that are a big threat to your bees. Well, the biggest threat to your honeybees would be other colonies of honeybees once the nectar flow slows down or dries up completely in the environment. So watch your entrances and please make sure that your bees can defend them. Also, we don't want a bunch of other smells going out into the environment. So when that honey is thick on the air, other bees, you can tell the robbers, they're checking out the sides and the back of your hives. They're flying underneath of the hive. That's why those with open screen bottom boards that cannot be closed up get a lot of visitors that want to rob because they can really smell what's being stored inside the hive. Competition is about to get very intense in the honeybee world. So sure, wasps and things like that, they're peaking, they're producing their queens, and they're going to need as much protein as they can possibly get. But everything, wasps, hornets, honeybees, bumblebees even, they all go after nectar. They all go after the honey and stores and resources and can do profound damage to the resources in a colony. So what you can do as the backyard beekeeper, keep those entrances small. What would be, in my opinion, a perfectly sized honeybee hive entrance? 2 to 3 inches wide, 3/8 of an inch tall. That's it. Bees can defend that. You don't have to worry about them being overwhelmed. These wide open landing boards with broad entrances require twice the guard bees, require twice the number of bees to defend it, and have opportunity to see those yellow jackets in particular scooting in from the sides. Why do I say that? Some people will say, well, if the colony is big enough, they can defend against that. Well, let me tell you about something else that's about to happen. Temperatures are going to drop. Honeybees do not occupy the landing boards and defend the colony when temperatures are cold. Guess who can fly in the cold and show up early in the mornings and get right past those guards that are too cold to function? Wasps. And if wasps can do it, then we want to make sure that we limit the size of those entrances so that they can encounter some defense in the morning. Now, of course, as the bees wake up, they start to get active and start scooting those wasps, and I've found dead bumblebees in beehives at the bottom, so they're not the biggest threat, but a bumblebee has a problem getting through that 3/8 inch high opening, as do mice in winter, and that's why I say reduce your openings and keep them that way year round. This is for backyard beekeeping. Also, if you have upper entrances, then you have an opportunity for robbers to come through the top as well. So once again, I prefer single landing board entrances, 3/8 of an inch high, 2 to 3 inches wide. This is the temperature right now, 78 degrees Fahrenheit, 61% relative humidity. The reason I'm showing you this is an opportunity, great weather conditions, to go in and do a rapid inspection. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I've already opened up the hive, horizontal, long Langstroth hive. It is full, bumper to bumper with bees. It's got roughly 14 frames of honey, so these bees are definitely set for winter time. In other words, they've got the resources that they need to get them through winter already. This colony is not in trouble. In fact, this could prove to be one of the colonies that does the robbing rather than getting robbed, because it's your biggest, healthiest, strongest colonies that send out the most foragers. They send out foragers that find weaknesses in smaller colonies. They come back with the resources they taste and rob there, and then they leave with hundreds, if not thousands, of members of their own hive to rob out smaller, weaker colonies, and we don't want that. So anyway, that's just one of the frames I pulled out to get it out of the way so I can slide frames to the side. Now the other thing is, with this long Langstroth box, I have cover boards, and notice that I'm not pulling all the cover boards off at once. I'm pulling off just a few at a time and moving them to the right, keeping the frames that I'm not actively inspecting covered. So each cover board covers about 3 frames at a time, and all I'm looking for here, I mean, it's nice to know that they have lots of capped honey, which they do. Each one of these frames, once the honey is capped, weighs about 7 pounds. So as I mentioned before, they have more than enough to get them through winter, so I'm not concerned about this colony. So the reason for our inspection today is a rapid evaluation, and we just want to find out, do we have brood? Now the presence of brood, for example, capped pupa stage larvae, would not necessarily mean they haven't lost or they're not about to lose their queen. But what I want to show you is, what we hope to find would be eggs and very young larvae inside the hive in the brood areas. And that's because when a colony is getting ready to swarm, if that behavior, all that flurry of activity on the front of the hive, if that were indicating that they're about to depart with the queen, your valuable queen this time of year, then they would have stopped laying eggs, because the queen starts getting put on a diet by the nurse bees. They start chasing her around. The workers in the hive make preparations for her to fly away, and when they do that, she stops laying eggs. So if we can find eggs in here, we know that the queen has been present and has been laying eggs within the last 3 days. So that's the goal. They're actually pretty quiet. I have used smoke to calm them down. My favorite smoke or fuel right now, I'll just mention for kicks, is pine shavings mixed with grass clippings. And I don't just mean grass clippings that you make. It's when you mow the yard and the grass gets really dense on the underside of your mower. I scrape those chunks out, dry them, and mix them in with the pine shaving, and I get a smoker that lasts 45 minutes or more. Here we have a brood frame, worker brood. So we're not alarmed that they're making nothing but drones. Based on the number of drones that we saw on the outside, that seemed a normal percentage this time of year. Although they will be killing them off, I'm looking for eggs. I don't see a lot of eggs on this frame. And we do see some capped brood, of course, but notice that most of these cells are empty. There is some larvae there open, so they're being fed there. Now, so this marks the beginning of the brood for this horizontal hive. Everything to the right of it will be honey stores, and everything from this frame to the left towards the entrance will be brood. And there's no queen excluder. I don't use queen excluders, especially in horizontal hives. Don't need to. If you have a single entrance, you're going to find the distribution of your larvae. Then you've got bee bread, which is your pollen stores, and then you'll migrate into nothing but honey frames the farther you get from the single entrance, no other venting. That's my practice. You can do what you want, but I'm sharing with you what I've been doing and the incremental changes that I've made in my hive configurations and management of bees since 2006. So this is working here in the state of Pennsylvania, northeastern United States. I'm going to take this red China marker, also known as grease pencil, and I'm just marking that frame so that I know where the brood was during my last inspection. And remember, we don't want to spend a lot of time here. If you make a mistake and cut into the honey, for example, or if you are one of those people that disturbs honey cells and it cracks open and the honey drips all over the top of the frames, there are plenty of foragers out there that might catch that scent, zoom in, and start tasting the honey. They're the ones that come in from the back and the sides, You want to watch for that, and if there starts to be some kind of honey feeding frenzy going on, you need to close up the hive quickly. Those will return to their parent colonies, they will come back with more foragers, and they will try to attack your colony of bees. So this time of year we're pretty good though. I just wanted to demonstrate a rapid inspection. We still have plenty of goldenrod, we have lots of forage in the environment, we have lots of clover, lots of opportunity for the bees to get resources, so they're pretty calm. That will change quickly in the weeks to come. Light smoke just to get them off the back. Don't oversmoke. Oversmoking can actually get a stress response from your bees, so listen to them. And as long as it's a nice hum and you don't see a lot of guard bees staring at you and watching your every movement, the colony's not very defensive. Now you can also get them defensive if you squash a few bees along the way, and that can cause them to release their threat pheromone. This is a nice brood frame here, and I'll get you a close look at because this is giving me the answer I need. I'm trying to get around the camera here so I can show this to you. Lots of larvae, great pattern, and eggs. Exactly what I was looking for. Now you'll notice too, some of these cappings have been chewed open. These are Varroa sensitive hygienic bees, and they tend to smell, that's right, they can smell Varroa destructor mites under the caps in a pupating honeybee. They chew that open, the air gets in there, the pupa still lives, but the Varroa destructor mites can't handle that and they die. So these are fantastic bees. This particular colony has not required treatment all year. That's right. So we've got lots of eggs, larvae, everything I needed to know, so I can actually close them up now. I just want to take a minute to show this to you. And these are single piece frames that this is growing on. Also, we want to look at the edges of that. The second part of it is we're looking for queen cells. I don't see any. Great news. So that means that not only did we not lose a queen, they're not going to swarm because they haven't prepared for a replacement queen. No queen cells. And then we're going to get these pushed back together, but these single frame black plastic, that's provided by Acorn. I use heavy waxed frames. And I mix different types of frames together here. You'll see some of them marked BC, that's better comb, and I test a lot of different things at once. So I mix them up. Now you might be saying, Fred, this colony is really loaded. Why aren't you checkerboarding? I never checkerboard brood areas. The brood, because we get cold nights now. It's been down into the 40s even. Now, when you have brood frames, keep all your brood frames together. If you want to expand, add an extra frame just beyond your brood frame and between your next honey frames. So you can do that. There are 3 or 4 partially drawn honey frames in this hive, so they're in pretty good shape overall. And this is just showing the end. We have a divider board, also known as a follower board. This one, the bees have been getting past tiny little openings, so I try to make those adjustments. Now we're all the way to the right end of this hive now, so I've jumped ahead on you. We closed up the others. These cover boards I'm showing you are very important. If you're going to do inspections during times where you have the risk of robbing or other bees getting an interest in this colony, keep the frames that you're not actively looking at covered. You can do this with cover boards. You can also lay canvas, cotton duck canvas on there, and just roll it back as you go. Some people use that as the inner cover. So light smoke, I'm trying to get these bees out of here before I close it up. I also use a vacuum cleaner that I'm going to show you here in a few moments, but just showing how it's laid out. Now this is the end of it. This is held by a chain, and you'll notice that there's insulation in the top. I insulate through the top. We do have tiny air movement there, but the air movement does not come through these backer boards, because if you look at these cover boards, they're glued together with propolis by the bees. That's another very important thing to pay attention to. For those of you who might be looking into your hives near the end of the year, a lot of people are pulling honey and extracting that now. You'll find out the propolis seals everything up. And they need warm air. They need warm weather to restore the damage that you do to your beehives when you're inspecting. So, the other part of that, and again, this is for my backyard beekeeper learners. Once you get your last draw of honey and you've left enough on for your bees, I need 46 to 50 pounds of honey here in Pennsylvania. This shows you the bees not being harmed inside this bee vac. I call it a bee vac. It's really just a, rechargeable portable vac that I use to collect bees when I need to, because it's easier than trying to scrape them all out and get them out of the way. And then I can open the end of it, which I'm going to show you in a second here. But try not to pull everything apart at the end of the year, because the bees need to re-glue it and re-winterize themselves. And we're using insulated covers on all the hives. Here they are. Let's just open that up and get them out of there. That's a shark vac if you're looking for them. They're not very good as a vacuum cleaner, but they're excellent for collecting your bees, getting them out of the way, and then releasing them later right in front of the hive that they came from. And I forgot, of course, found another cover board that I didn't put back. See the bees on the end there? That's not a concern. They will find their way back in through the cracks. And later this year I'm going to do some new insulating too, so that'll be coming up in another video. I've been paying attention to another insulation material that I think is going to help out. Insulated inner covers everywhere. And now back to the entrance. Behavior's still normal, lots of drones. And looking at the ground, we always want to look at the ground to see, are there any deformed wing virus bees laying down there? Has there been evidence of a fight? Now if we find things like drones, that should not be a surprise, because the bees do discard drones. That's what this is right here, a male bee. Served his purpose. It looks like they starved him. His tongue is sticking out, and they chewed his wings a little bit. Honeybees are not friendly to the drones when it gets to the end of the year. They don't want to feed them and take care of them into winter. But as I mentioned before, 2 out of 3 of my observation hives have replaced their queens. So I need those to get mated. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful to you when you're looking at your landing boards this time of year. And maybe you'll take on board some of the pointers that I've made regarding what to do and not to do with your bees just before you get into winter. Don't let your bees get robbed out. Thanks for watching.